Hey, happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back to the I-5 Corridors Traffic Report. Tyson Alger here, joined by Shane Hoffman.
Beautiful day.
And we just want to get something out of the way here at the start. We wouldn't want to be hosting any other podcasts. We're happy here hosting this podcast. I don't know why. If our names get floated for hosting a different podcast,
the grass isn't always greener.
Yeah, it's not always greener, and it's just a tribute to the work that we're doing here.
We want to win here.
Exactly. It must be November, Shane. How are you doing?
It is November. I'm doing well. Today saved me a little bit. It's sunny out. It's been not a rough stretch of weather, but kind of what you expect this time of year. And every year I spend out here now, this is year 6 for me in Oregon.
Oh, man, that's good.
Crazy, yeah. Right? And every winter, I find myself succumbing a little bit more to the seasonal depression.
You open up the door and it's your old friend Sad.
Yeah.
And you kind of forgot that he shows up every single year.
And he seems more intimidating every single year.
I once had a friend tell me that if you're ever looking to make like an important life decision, like if it's like a career move, don't do it in the middle of Portland summer. Because in Portland summer, you just get this veil of this place is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, especially this summer. We barely even got into the hundreds this summer. It was like 85, 90 it was great. And then you kind of forget that come November, it can be pretty rainy, and everyone thinks that your college football coach can be poached.
Absolutely.
How's that for a transition?
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
You wrote a great column about it before he came out and said what we expected him to say. You and I, at least.
Yeah. Okay. Dan Lanning is the smartest coach Oregon's had that I've covered, I think. And, like...
surpassed Helfrich?
Yeah. Because I think Lanning has more kind of foresight than Helfrich did. I believe Lanning in what he said yesterday. And that was, of all the years of Oregon coaches being on the coaching carousel, that was the most emphatic. I'm staying at Oregon. Mm-hmm. Why would I go anywhere? And it sounds like he actually means it. That's also the only response that Oregon fans would have taken in this scenario.
Well, he's
too.
Been very intentional though since on the day he was hired, on media day, ever since then, at every juncture he's been very intentional about it. It's so funny how little time these coaches need to start getting mentioned after one job. I mean, he's done a great job.
Right.
But it's interesting because it's not even 2 years in, and it's not too many weeks ago now that people were, criticizing him nationally for rash decision making.
It's it's the reactionary. The time to react is so quick these days. And it's just interesting, like what you're paying for with coaches too, because this season, Lanning, going into this season, they gave him that contract extension that made him the richest coach in Oregon history. Put him up like kind of a mid-playing national, about like where you would expect him to be nationally. And at the time, that was like, okay, this guy's had one season of college football, but it's almost like you're paying in anticipation for what they're going to do. So with that being said, I absolutely hated the yearly contract extension noise that you would get when Cristobal was here.
Yeah. Because
it was every year it's kind of what we were referencing earlier about it being November. Because Cristobal always kind of, I don't have it in front of me, but I think he ended up having 3 different contracts at Oregon. And I don't like that. At the same time, I think at this point, with how much is changing within college football, how desperate programs are to to have a quick turnaround and a successful turnaround and to have a name, I think Dan has turned himself into one of the most valuable commodities in college sports right now, and it wouldn't surprise me if after all this is said and done, he still ends up getting another bigger contract from this out of Oregon that might take some people aback by the price that it has along with it, but I think he's worth it at this point.
And yet again, if Oregon
or worth it in quotes, because like what is worth at this point?
No, but Oregon's gonna pony up if they need to. I don't see them losing a coach because of money concerns. Let me put it that way, because that hasn't been an issue with these other coaches. It's been they have this pull to some other program or area of the country. Lanning, he also said, to that point, he's like, I feel taken care of here. I know that, they will give me what I need, and I'm already making a lot of money. I don't really see a little bit of money changing my mind. And yet again, I think his family is just fine.
Well, and at the same time, too, like, one of the points I tried to make in my column yesterday is Oregon is a good job. Like, it's the program can facilitate wins. It's the Ducks have had 13 10-win seasons since 2000, and that's been under 5 different coaches. Right. Texas A&M's had one of those. So Oregon has shown that it can recover and kind of quickly recover from having to reset. That being said, I think that this one would hurt. Like, if Lanning were to leave, like, right now or sometime soon, I think this one would hurt the most, because just the people in that building love him. And I'm not even just talking about the players, like staff, not even the coaching staff, but just overall staff feel like they're treated better, that they're respected more. Like,
sourcing.
Yeah, it's a very it's a lot more of a homey atmosphere within that place, and I think it would be pretty tough for them to not only, like, lose that from the quality that they're showing on the football field, but just from, like, what they've built, like, within that community right now.
Look, Lanning is not going to spend his entire career in Eugene. I would be shocked. It might be the NFL. It might be, another program at some point. But I do think there's merit to the fact that his kids are, 13, 10, and 7 or something. I don't know if he wants to move them again before they're off to college. And that's, 5 years for the oldest one at this point. So I think he's here to stay for the foreseeable future. And go ahead.
I just don't see where if the money is there and the ability to win a national title is there, and I think that we're getting into a window where that's realistic for Oregon. I don't know what would be a better job within college than that, unless you really want to take it upon yourself to, like, succeed, like at Nick Saban. That was kind of the joke kicker at the end of my column is, like, why would you go to Texas A&M when the options Lanning will have is either going to be, like, become a god at Oregon or, like, have, like, your absolute top pick of jobs. And
he's going to be mentioned. I'm just preparing everybody. Every time a big job comes open, no matter how big of a job it is,
Georgia,
he will be
Alabama.
On the short list of 5 to 6 candidates. Georgia and Alabama are the two that I would say would maybe be hard for him to turn down at this point. But again, if he delivers Oregon its first title, if he's doing this in a different way, in a different part of the country,
that's legacy making.
That's legacy making, and I think as a young person, a young professional, I'm sure he wants that. And it's already lining up to be this way, but it will continue to be this way if he keeps doing what he's doing. Like, Oregon, yet again, is the power of the West Coast. And I think there's something to be said for the move to Big Ten, because I do wonder if we're having a slightly different conversation had that move not happened. I'm curious your perspective on that.
Oh, yeah.
Because that seems like it tied up all the loose ends about what this program can and can't be.
Oregon's not going to be at a loss financially, even if we start looking into, like, a post-Phil Knight era. And this is something that really I need to report on more, but of how Oregon is kind of set up for that. But I'm sure there's contingency plans that are been put in place. But like they're going to be on the same playing field. They're going to be getting the same TV exposure. Yeah, they have a few years until, like, they earned the same rights from the conference just because of when they came over.
That doesn't matter. It's about optics and exposure.
And if you're riding this high from, like, this year, like, the Big Ten's going to promote the hell out of them next year, especially if they're good, and they're going to be.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to say. I still don't think people really understand how good some of these West Coast teams have the potential to be in the Big Ten. That conference, outside of 3 teams, I've said it earlier this year, I'll say it again, is disgusting football. It is just putrid football. Like, I grew up in the Midwest. Like, I feel like I can say that.
Yeah. Do you think that the top end of Ohio State and Michigan clouds everyone's vision to what the rest of
it? And it has for years at this point. It's Wisconsin and Iowa, but those teams are not teams that ever scare anyone on a real national level. When this new conference is put together, Ohio State, I guess Penn State, and Michigan will be up in 3 of the top 8 programs every year in that mega conference, the West Coast teams will probably be the rest of the 8. I don't even a UCLA, USC, Washington. I say even, like, they're not, great programs. They will each year have the potential to be vastly better than the other bottom dwellers in that conference. It's
interesting looking at the situations of the other schools that are going into the Big Ten too. USC is probably not as confident in Lincoln Riley as they were a year ago. There's probably not a whole lot of columns coming out the next week that are going to predict them to win the national championship next year. I think Chip Kelly's going to get fired at UCLA. Remember 2 years ago when that was kind of a point of discussion is should they bring Chip back to Oregon?
Right.
Washington, Kalen DeBoer's press conference yesterday wasn't nearly as rah-rah inspiring as Dan Lanning's.
They're going to lose,
and that's
a lot.
Yeah, that's an athletic department that's not in as financially sound of a situation as Oregon is.
I'm glad you brought this up because I've had some interesting just kind of moments just sitting and thinking to myself of those four teams, like when you look across the athletic department, what teams are set up the best to have success. And again, Washington, it's only their football team driving this right now.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Their hoops teams are not going to do anything.
Yeah, and like they've kind of publicly like waved the flag on the hoops team too. It's just kind of like, look, we can't do anything about this right now.
Which is honestly a travesty given how much talent is in their backyard.
They should be every bit as good as like the Arizonas and like the
question.
Yeah. It's
in terms of recruiting hotbeds for hoops, Washington is right up there.
The fact that Oregon has just been rinsing Washington in basketball for the last decade is
telling.
Yeah.
So, you have Washington. We're on a complete tangent right now, but I kind of enjoy
I like this. Yeah, it's like the TikTok version.
Yeah, they're going to lose their offensive coordinator and or their head coach. I would wager. I think even odds, if not better. Penix is gone. The receivers are gone. There's a chance they lose everything that's made them great and their whole identity in one offseason, and then ends up in the kind of facing the Big Ten next year. UCLA, they got hoops going. Same with USC. And so I wonder how those quote-unquote warm weather teams adapt football-wise when they're going to play in Iowa at 9 a.m. Pacific time on a Saturday. I'm super curious. But I think Oregon, as soon as they go to the Big Ten in football, has a chance to be the best team in that conference. And that's something we were not going to be saying any of the last 5+ years.
Yeah, it's a weird spot for me to be in because I don't want to come across sounding homerish, and I think I've done an okay enough.
Well, you grew up a Washington fan.
Yeah.
How could you sound homerish?
And I think I've done an okay enough job throughout my career here of trying to walk that line. But a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to look objectively at Oregon right now is coming up very positively, and that's including how they're playing this season. I think one of the things that we do a lot with good football teams and programs too is you're always looking for the nitpicking thing. And even in this game, the USC game, I think the second question to Lanning was about penalties. And that's fair because their expectation is there, and Lanning's not going to come out and say hey, we played great, we did this. But the more I watch this team, this is a really good football team, and I also want to kind of appreciate that for what it is too, because we've seen some really bad ones over the last 10 years. Not a lot of bad ones, but we've seen kind of so it's I'm trying very hard to not make this look like that I'm because even the column yesterday of Oregon being a Texas better than Texas A&M job, anyone down there is gonna be this guy's the Oregon writer, he's
right. Well, you had a lot of facts in there too. It wasn't an op-ed.
Yeah, and so that's what I think trying to say is just I legitimately think there's a lot trending in Oregon's direction right now. Go Ducks!
You were in Eugene for the first night game of the season. They had the whole blackout in the crowd.
That was such a long game.
It seemed pretty loud.
It was a very lively game. Yeah. It wasn't the most electric atmosphere I've seen, but also it wasn't a top 25 team they were playing. Right. But it was It was a fun crowd. There was loud.
There was loud.
There was loud. Caleb Williams was a hell of a lot of fun to watch play, especially from the kind of the all 22 angle. If he had an offensive line or a defense or really anybody else on the field that wanted to help him in that game, it would have been interesting.
If he had ball security, that would also help.
Exactly. But man, it's probably the only other player that I've seen that's been like that dynamic on the field that I've seen is probably Marcus. And I think Caleb's going to be a better NFL player than him. So that was fun. And it was even better for the Ducks to witness that and still put them in their place relatively easy. I know the score got a little close there at the end. I wasn't entirely worried about it.
In a game where one player, even a quarterback, rarely is able to completely impact a game the way maybe in basketball one player is, he is the best one-man show in the nation. I mean, I told you this last year, but when I saw him play in Corvallis, they sucked. And yet, the whole night, he's making obscene plays, and he's the only one out there that seems like is doing anything positive, and then, lo and behold, end of the game, he makes some plays. So I don't think you can come away feeling too disappointed about Oregon. It was close on paper. You know, it was a 9-point game that wasn't that close. Probably should have been less close, really. But, again, Oregon's defensive line just whipped that team.
I know
26 pressures or something like that.
Yeah, the offense is what's getting all the pub for Oregon, and as I wrote, Bo Nix should be at the front or close to it of the Heisman conversation. The biggest difference between what was a good Oregon team last year and a great team this year is just what you said. It's that defensive line. It's that front seven pressure. It was almost every play the Ducks were just blowing up that front and just stuffing them up the middle on run plays too. Like USC couldn't get anything on the ground against them.
And there is no way, no matter how the season pans out, that they will have to play a quarterback like that again.
Yeah.
They might play comparable talents, but not a quarterback quite like that.
Having seen Williams and Penix now, I still think you can't underestimate at all Washington's passing attack because it's more complete, especially with the receivers that they do have, and their ability to get in sync is incredible. But just as like a singular talent, like Caleb is miles ahead of Penix. And I don't know how that translates to the NFL, but just from like, oh, holy shit, that guy can take over the game himself. Like it's Caleb.
I just a side note, I'm very curious to see what it's like when he does maybe have a better offensive line, and when it's more, okay, you have to drop back now and you have to rely on your footwork here and there, what that looks like. Because it's kind of hard to, reverse that programming, it seems like.
His ability, though, to buy himself time, get on the run, and he's got such a quick release that still launches downfield. He had one that he rolled out and then he just like flicked his wrist and the ball sails like 60 yards downfield, and it was like, man, because like from that angle too, like he doesn't look like that big of a dude.
No, he's not.
You do get down on the field.
He's well built.
I was going to say like he's thicker than like he kind of looks like a running back out there, to be honest. I was thoroughly impressed, and
best spatial awareness of a quarterback I've seen in quite a while.
that 2 point that they didn't convert, where he was running to the sidelines and still like, I know that was like a meaningless play, but it was just like, holy cow.
The Bo Nix thing is funny because he's now favored on a lot of books as for the Heisman. I think rightfully so, and yet it's funny that this was the game that he surpassed whoever to become the favorite. Given, I'm watching this quick highlight, compilation on Twitter. I think Pac-12 might have put it out or something. It's like Bo Nix put up a Heisman-worthy performance with 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then the first 2 plays, it's like he flicks the one to Tez Johnson, and Tez makes an incredible spin move to get a touchdown. Yeah. And then the second one, wide open, and Troy just burns everyone.
So many of their touchdowns look like the peak Oregon offense touchdowns of the Chip Kelly and Helfrich years, where it was just like quarterback makes the right read, hits the open receiver who has nobody around him, and then it's just like home run plays. It's just the efficiency at which Bo Nix runs this offense. I know it's not as sexy as Williams running around there, or he doesn't necessarily have the beautiful deep ball that Penix does, but just like his overall command of this offense is awfully impressive.
I have a funny just statistical who's who for you.
Okay.
Because you're right. This offense looks dynamic. Troy to be 6'3" and to be able to move like that on that play, I think I appreciate it more and more every time I watch it because he's going to run a 4.3 something at the combine.
Does he get bored if he finishes a game with 140 yards, but he only catches 2 balls?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So Roma Dunze is the guy in the Pac-12, right?
Yeah.
And he's probably going to be the first receiver taken. Maybe a second, sorry, because you got Marvin Harrison.
Biletnikoff is spelled R. Oh, what was that when we were driving home from the
Unreal
Washington
call.
game?
Yeah. They're both about the same size.
Uh-huh.
Adunze is a little bit more well-built. He's got better, maybe, jump ball abilities. Who do you think has more receptions? Troy, by 1.
Yeah.
59 to 60. More yards would be who?
I'm pretty smart at picking up patterns, so I'm going to say Troy.
No, but he has 7 less yards than Rome, and he has 2 more touchdowns, 11 to 9.
It is interesting that
and this is a more balanced offense that throws the ball less than Washington does. I just think that's interesting.
I was just about to say it's interesting how with the comparison between Nix and Penix, it's often like, oh, Penix is a much better passer. But he also, according to everyone nationally, Washington has the best receiver. So it's like how is this working with Oregon if Troy is getting more or equal yards and Nix isn't as good of a thrower? Like something's got to bend here.
Yeah, well, Bo Nix still has, and I don't think this contradicts anything you or I have said this year. He still has the ability to make more different types of throws off platform out of the pocket than Penix does or has. Penix is a sniper back there and will continue to be maybe the best deep ball.
He's more of Penix looks more like a 2000s quarterback, and Nix looks like a 2010 or like a 2020s quarterback.
Yeah. That's a game I think for Oregon where most years it's there's a lot to nitpick, right? They win, but there's a lot to nitpick. Don't particularly see it that way. I think they could have played better. They should have played better. It doesn't really give me any concern moving forward. They've got ASU, which will be a weird 1 p.m. game, and then they've got Oregon State, who's all of a sudden 10th team in the nation.
The one thing that I love and hate about college is how each single game is picked apart like that. Like in the NFL, like teams are just like if you're a heavy favorite, if you're winning by a field goal, you're stoked. Like it's a win. A win's a win. It's hard to win in the NFL. In college, it's like Oregon dominated that game. They still win by 9.
Yeah, 9.
They still win by 9. It wasn't particularly ever like in doubt.
No,
and it's like,
no.
I'm not quite sure but you also are looking through it at the lens of like, is Oregon going to be able to compete with a Georgia or a Washington in the Pac-12 championship game again? So you want to see them be able to execute their entire game. But
there's no style points.
But this is like a Saturday night. It's midnight. Yeah. like they didn't lose, and I'm kind of quite glad that they're not playing in the middle of the night in Tempe on Saturday this week. That would be frightening.
Yes.
Because we've seen how that's gone before.
Speaking of the middle of the night, this is maybe a lack of due diligence on my part, but the Corridor Cup, Oregon versus Oregon State, 5:30 kick on a Friday. That's weird.
I'm okay with that.
I'm not okay with it. I just think it's interesting because also that's going to be the state high school football championship that same night. I wonder what the media does.
I think I'll go to the Corridor Cup.
Me personally.
I do enjoy the 5:30 kick because I'm not going to get home at 3 a.m. like I would if it was 7:30. But
so 1 a.m.
I am also going to be able to enjoy my Thanksgiving without being like, God, I got to be on the road at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So it's kind of best of both worlds. Although it is kind of nice when it's on the Saturday because you get that like 1 day buffer. But on the other hand, we get to watch football. Like having a day off on Saturday, like during college football season, and then just watching college football is great.
Absolutely,
it's wonderful. So I'm
okay. Yeah, you forget that the Pac-12 does these Friday night games because they're usually, I don't want to say throwaway, but it's usually a top whatever team versus a bottom whatever team in the Pac-12, and it's just weird. That'll be an interesting one. I don't know. Do you have?
You know who impresses me? And
go ahead.
Kenny Dillingham. Just they got the barn doors blown off of them. What was that? 2 weeks ago, and there are a lot of coaches who will do that's on me. And I think that's often a way to actually escape criticism because it's just kind of like this blanket. But I've watched a lot of that dude's press conferences this year, and he tells you a lot. He's accountable. He follows up on things. And the way that like they've been able to like continue to kind of like bounce back and battle, and like that guy hasn't lost his locker room at all, and he doesn't have nearly the most talented locker room in the conference. I think the Ducks will smoke them. I think the Ducks should smoke them. But I think that school is poised to do well under him, especially now that they're gonna get an athletic director that seems to be willing to look into the future.
Not to mention that, they have had years, and including this year, where they've been outshone by Arizona on the gridiron and on the basketball court. And Arizona's athletic department is in what seems to be complete shambles, kind of a dumpster fire financially right now. It read as if someone was siphoning money. I mean, I don't know how you come up 200 million something short on your projections. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I imagine they're probably pretty happy that they're not depending on Apple subscriptions next year to
bingo
keep things going.
Not a bad transition by me. I'm learning from you.
Yeah.
Anyways, I agree with you on ASU.
It was 55-3 Utah over Arizona State on November 4th, and then just tough. A week later, Arizona State beats UCLA 17-7.
Unreal.
Unreal.
The way that they've manufactured offense with nobody. Once he gets a quarterback he can trust, and maybe that's their freshman that got hurt earlier in the season. That's gonna be interesting. I think he will have a good run there.
Did you watch the Oregon-Montana game?
No, I didn't get to watch much of it.
I didn't either.
Shocker there from you. You're usually pretty tapped into
and go Grizz, right? But
yeah. Did you have any takes on it?
No, I was actually kind of hoping that you did.
Well, it was another funny game where they were missing two starters, and then they were missing the two freshmen, which we knew they were going to be missing. But
I think they're expecting Shellstad back this week. So
right, and I don't think Dante or Zarzuela was he who was out? Yes, Zarzuela. I don't think either one of those guys is supposed to be out very long. So yet again, I'll say it. I said it the last time we recorded. I mean, just the fact that they are still dealing with these injuries, but they are unblemished. I know it's been literally 2 games.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see that Michigan game, though, because Michigan actually looks pretty good.
Yep.
I think Michigan will be able to challenge them in a lot of ways that they'll need to be challenged, just because Michigan's got kind of an interesting makeup this year. That being said, that game is on December 2nd, and the Pac-12 championship game is the night before.
Oh man, that's
that's going to be a perhaps overshadowed.
Yeah, a little. Yeah, just
dare I say.
Well, what's new?
I was going to ask you about your Thanksgiving food preferences and plans.
Yeah, hit me.
Well, I'm curious. I don't know if we've had this discussion. Certainly not live on the podcast. Are you stick to the classics on Thanksgiving? Are you keep some, throw the rest out, and recycle what you might do?
I like the mainstays. I like turkey, like stuffing. Turkey. Love me some cranberry sauce.
Mashed potatoes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's hard not
Wait, do you think this doesn't like mashed potatoes? Hate with a passion green bean casserole.
Yeah.
I'm actually not really a casserole guy in general. I know there are probably some good ones out there.
I like green beans.
Yeah, I do like green beans too. Not a big green bean casserole guy.
I don't hate turkey, but it's never something I look forward to.
It's
the only way I consume turkey is like lunch meat.
Right.
So unless you have some sort of way of doing it, like a deep fried turkey or God knows what else, the past few years when I've been with my family, we've done like prime rib.
Oh, nice.
And then we've done the mashed potatoes and everything else, and that's much better to me.
Yeah, like we've never been like, I wouldn't say like we're super traditional, but like we've never really like purposely like gone outside of the boundaries of Thanksgiving. But also like I've worked a lot. Like I think I've worked the last 2 Thanksgivings, or last year was PK.
That's right.
Or was that 2 years? No, that was last year. Yeah, last year was a PK. I've had that a couple times before.
Yeah. Yeah, I ate a lot of food at that event. Fed me for like 3 days.
But like we also used to be like for Christmas we used to be like super traditional. Like our family would always do like my mom would bake like a really like fancy like prime rib dinner on Christmas Eve. And we'd break out like the fancy cutlery and all like all that sort of stuff. And then as we all just got a little bit older, and this is before like I left for college, I think we just kind of were like, you know what, this doesn't need to be so like formal. And I think it might have actually, I can't remember if this was a Thanksgiving or a Christmas Eve, but there was one day that like we just went out on our snowmobiles for like the full day and like made like grilled cheese sandwiches.
That sounds
and
pretty dope.
It was like the best holiday I've ever had. Like,
yeah, this year's gonna be a little bit different. I didn't see my family on Thanksgiving last year because I was covering events, PK, Corridor Cup. That's it. But busy. But this year will be interesting. My sister, stepmom, and dad are flying out.
Ooh.
So I'll be, I guess, quote unquote hosting. They won't be staying with me, but I think on Thanksgiving Day we might cook at my place. That'll be fun. There'll be some good football to watch. Yeah.
You know what's gonna be fun? Well, specifically this part won't be fun, but I'm going back to Alaska this weekend for my grandpa's funeral, and you'll be covering the Oregon State Washington game for us. But I just looked at the temperature, and not only has Alaska been having like record snow for this early of the year, but the high degree for Palmer, Alaska on Saturday is 5 degrees, and the low I think is like -8. So
oof,
it'll be a fun time.
As someone who
I don't have warm weather clothes anymore, and see that's
really?
That's the problem, is because like after
no long underwear or anything like that, gloves, beanies.
I have
you can scrap together.
Yeah, I can scrap it up together, but like I did like a mass purge of all my warm Alaska stuff when I moved to Hawaii after college because like hey,
makes sense. You've adapted well to where like you'll pull up to an open press box game in November and you usually do like a 1 layer.
Yeah, but I complain a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've been known to complain a little bit at games, press box situations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I grew up in a cold weather place. I miss the snow, so it's cool you get to see snow. 5 degrees is exactly why I left, though. That's crazy.
Dude, it's one of those things. I daydream about home sometimes, and of like, oh, what would it be like to like go back up and move there? And I'm very aware that you remember like the good things, and you can even view the bad things through too much nostalgia of like, oh man, I missed that crisp morning.
Maybe it'll happen to me in the next 5 years. It hasn't hit me yet.
Yeah,
I don't miss it.
No, man, it's better here.
I actually can't believe it's been 6 years. I know 4 of that was college, but that really snuck up on me.
Yeah,
because you always like
no,
you're like you've been here for 10 years, and when you say that, I'm like, holy crap,
you're gonna blink, and all of a sudden you're gonna own a Substack and be pigeonholed into covering this damn region.
Let's hope not.
The rest of your life.
That would be
subscribe today.
A tough outcome, right? No, yeah, the blistering cold though. I know we're just kind of going on and on. It's so different for people who haven't experienced it. Nothing can prepare you. Your skin is messed up for sometimes weeks afterwards. I go to Chicago a lot because I have friends and family there, and I spent some time there last winter, and it just destroyed me.
We used to have outdoor hockey games for high school, and the cutoff for coldest it could be was 20 below. Like, you still had to play it outside if it was like 19. And I remember one game we were playing in Glen Allen, and it was like 18 below, and the wind was blowing 30 miles an hour. And it was miserable. I got like my jaw knocked out that game and didn't notice until afterwards because it was so cold.
Oof. Lastly, have you made it to a Blazers game, and do you understand the midseason tournament?
I haven't made it to a Blazers game yet. I don't quite understand the midseason tournament.
Do you care is the last question there.
I find the discourse entertaining because otherwise I wouldn't really be... Because I feel like when the NBA starts, you enjoy it for like the first 2 weeks, and then like you kind of get back lost into the fact that there's other more pressing things going on right now. So...
Now Blazers, Grizzlies.
But I have no idea what exactly it means. I think the courts look horrendous on TV.
They're jokes. Most of them.
They're cool to take pictures of, but they like if you don't like Matthew Knight Arena's court,
Yeah.
like these
The color blocking with just bold primary colors.
And I did find it funny when the Lakers beat the Suns and LeBron was like, "Woo! In-season tournament, baby, we're coming for like just so obviously selling."
Blazers thoughts at all? Have you watched much? Do you care to watch much?
Not right now.
They need Simons back very badly.
Yeah, very, very much.
The Malcolm Brogdon, Skylar Mays point guard rotation is less than desirable.
Hang the jerseys.
Yeah, and I don't like watching Jeremy Grant.
What'd you eat this week?
Not a bad weekend because I had some friends in town. So we went to Oma's Hideaway, which I'd been to twice. Hits every damn time. You should go. Highly recommend. Family style, Asian fusion. Went to Hot Yai. Been there a few times as well. Might have been the third time there. Thai,
like
sort of.
That's a good spot to hit in the summer, like downtown, or like not downtown, but across the water.
Yeah, there's a few. They got 2 locations, both good spots. And then just to top it off with more Thai, we got takeout from, I'm going to butcher it, Khao Mu Dang. Solid spot. Would eat again. There's a just ungodly amount of Thai places here.
Yeah.
What about you?
You know, it was actually a pretty tame week. I've been trying to cook at home a little bit more.
Tempting.
Although a place just opened up across the street called like Mosaic Brewery, and they have.
Oh my God! They knew you lived here or something.
Yeah, and they have it's like a Vietnamese kitchen that operates out of it, and it's got some potential.
What are we talking?
We got some like crispy egg rolls that were. I mean, I would have to like bring you the full menu.
Are you a pho guy, a banh mi guy?
Love a good banh mi.
Yeah, it's hard.
Pho, you know.
Hit or miss.
Yeah, it's just like soups warm me up a little too much. So.
Yeah, actually, I did go to a pho le win out by me. I did do that yesterday. That was good. Banh mi, got the soup, which is still in my fridge. Good eats, and with my family in town, I will be spoiled on terms of good eats because they will want to try restaurants, and I will happily make reservations and show them my favorite spots. Palomar, here I come again.
Yeah. All right. Coming later this week on the corridor, we're going to have a goodbye Arizona State. Goodbye, my sweet prince.
Still getting a goodbye Cal somewhere.
You know what? I will talk about this off air. Cyrus, I know that you wanna. I know you want that. Some stuff came up. I think I might drop it on you in the middle of December as like a.
When the Hoops team plays them or something.
You know, like when you buy an album and then like a month later they're like, for digital exclusive listeners, we have 2 new bonus songs. Like the Cal goodbye piece is going to be part of the bonus.
That's going to sell like crazy.
Exactly.
Numbers.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please subscribe if you haven't at i5corridor.com. Talk to you later.